Today, we're diving into one of pop culture's most, well, dazzling and disruptive movements, glam rock. And look, this wasn't just about catchy songs and some sparkly outfits. No way. This was a full-blown artistic revolution that totally challenged the very definition of masculinity on the world's biggest stages. So, let's get right into it. The whole story really kicks off with this question right here. By the early 1970s, the idea of a rock and roll rebel, it had kind of become a cliche, right? It was its own uniform. So glam rock comes along and asks, what if real rebellion wasn't about looking tougher? What if it was about looking, well, prettier?
And this just perfectly illustrates the battle lines that were being drawn. On one side, you had the old guard of rock, and they were obsessed with authenticity. It was all about denim, work shirts, this rugged, down-to-earth masculinity. But then you have these new rebels, and they embraced everything that was considered fake, satin, artifice, and this incredible flamboyant androgyny that just completely blew up the status quo.
To really get why glam was so explosive, we have to paint a picture of the world it was born into. The early 70s were kind of suffering from this big cultural hangover. The whole peace and love optimism of the 60s, that had faded, and it was replaced by economic recession and this sort of grim, gritty realism.
So the dominant rock look at the time wasn't just a style. It was basically an ideology. The denim, the work shirts, it all screamed that you were a serious, no-frills artist. It was all about being real. And this rugged, straight-laced masculinity was a direct pushback against what many saw as the failures of that whole psychedelic dream. But into this gray world, a little spark of glitter was about to fall.
And that first spark, it came from one guy, Mark Bolan, the super charismatic frontman of the band T-Rex. And he wasn't just playing music. He was literally crafting a brand new kind of rock star from the ground up.
Okay, so picture this. The year is 1971. Just burn this date into your memory, because this is the exact moment the fuse was lit for the entire glam rock explosion.
So, Bolan and his band T-Rex, they go on this massively popular British music show, Top of the Pops, to perform their hit Hot Love. But it's not just the song that captivates the millions of people watching. No, it's what Bolan has on his face. Just a little dab of glitter, right there under his eyes. I mean, it was such a tiny gesture, but it had absolutely revolutionary consequences.
And this quote just nails his unique contribution. Bolan, with his feather boas and silk jackets, he proved that a man could be beautiful, even pretty, and still be a total commanding rock god. He didn't give up his authority as a musician, he just wrapped it in satin and glitter. And in doing so, he softened those rigid rules of male stardom for an entire generation of kids watching at home.
All right, so if Mark Bolan was the spark that lit the fire, then David Bowie, he was the supernova that came right after. He took Bolan's playful androgyny and just launched it into a completely different dimension. I mean, both literally and figuratively.
Let's think of it this way. Bolan took the existing rulebook of what a male rock star could be, and he gently bent the pages. He blurred the lines.
But Bowie? Oh man, he didn't just bend the rules. He took that rulebook, set it on fire, and then launched the ashes into deep space. The second he created his character Ziggy Stardust in 1972, all previous bets were off. It was a whole new game.
And this right here is the absolute genius of the Ziggy Stardust concept. See, Bowie wasn't just a man dressing in women's clothes. He wasn't playing with gender on some human scale. No. By claiming to be an alien, he created this third space completely outside our earthly ideas of male and female. And this was so powerful because it gave his fans this safe, imaginative fantasy space to explore their own identities without having to fit into any existing social box.
But the glam universe, it was bigger than just Bolan and Bowie. At the exact same time, another band, Roxy Music, was pushing the boundaries in this much more cerebral, kind of art school way. They were proving that glamour could also be strange and futuristic.
And what's so fascinating about Roxy Music is this contrast happening right at its core. On one side, you had the frontman, Bryan Ferry, who was all about this retro glamour, like a slick 1950s matinee idol come to life. And then, on the other side of the stage, you had Brian Eno, the synthesizer wizard who looked like he'd just beamed in from a future made of feathers and leopard print. This duality just showed how broad the whole glam aesthetic could really be.
Eno's contribution here was especially subversive. I mean, here's this guy, operating these super complex, futuristic synthesizers, a very technical, intellectual job, right? All while dressed in plumes and sequins and heavy makeup. He completely dismantled the idea that there was a masculine way to be a tech genius and a feminine way to be decorative. With Eno, they were the exact same thing.
So, when all the glitter finally settled, what was the lasting impact? Well, it's pretty clear that glam rock was way more than just some fleeting fashion trend. It was, in fact, a cultural Trojan horse.
And this metaphor is just perfect, isn't it? The shiny platforms, the makeup, the impossible costumes, that was all the dazzling exterior. But hidden inside were these truly revolutionary ideas about identity and performance and gender, and they were smuggled directly into mainstream suburban living rooms through the TV.
And the impacts were just profound. For the first time, on a massive scale, men became objects to be looked at, totally flipping the script on the male gaze. It made it okay for regular teenage boys to experiment with eyeliner and glitter. And crucially, it helped separate the idea of wearing makeup from any specific sexual orientation. And of course, its DNA is all over the subcultures that came next, from punk to the new romantics.
So let's just tie this all together. You've got the androgyny of Bowie and Bolan, freaking that old rugged male archetype. You've got the artificiality of Roxy music, challenging the entire idea of realness in rock. Then there's Bowie's alien persona, creating that essential third space. And of course, T-Rex's mainstream success, which brought all these radical ideas right to the masses. It was, simply put, a complete cultural reset.
You know, in the end, the revolution never really stopped. The ideas that these artists unleashed back in the early 70s are still echoing through our culture today, which it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Who's carrying that torch now? Who out there is using artifice and androgyny to challenge the rules today? It's definitely something to think about.